Hi guys, in this video I'm going to talk about thought broadcasting and my experiences with it. So if you don't know what it is, it's a symptom most commonly of schizophrenia, but it also happens during psychoses, I believe. And it's effectively believing that your thoughts are being transmitted from your brain via radio or some kind of device, or that you can hear other people's thoughts. I've had a lot of the believing I could hear other people's thoughts, because when I would look at people, I would hear what they were thinking. Obviously, that wasn't real and based in reality, but that's what it would be like. I'd be walking through the city, and then I would maybe look up and look at a couple or something, and then the guy would be like, "Oh, why is that guy looking at me?" or something, and I would hear that as if their, lips were moving and they were speaking to me, and I would just have that, like, hear their thoughts. And that one was the most persistent form of thought broadcasting for me. I'd always hear that, hear those kind of hallucinations, I suppose, to some degree. But the most intense that I've ever had was when I was in call centers, because obviously, well, not obviously, but my condition is always triggered by stress. And so when I would get really stressed out in these call centers, because I used to be working sales as well. Oh my God. So you'd have like 300 calls a day, and the people were horrible because they didn't want to hear from a cold caller most of the time. And so I'd get stressed out, and I would genuinely believe that the headset I was wearing was transmitting my thoughts through the cable and into the device, and that would then be reading my thoughts to present images, symbols to me in secret messages in the postcodes and the names of the people. So, say for example, I was sat there, I was getting stressed out, and I was like, "Oh my God, the headset's reading my thoughts." God knows how I actually did those jobs. They must have thought I was an absolute lunatic, honestly, because I would leave them a lot. I worked in a lot of call centers because I didn't know about benefits at the time either. So what I would do is I would get a job in one of these places because they would just take anybody. They were always looking for people because of the high turnover rate. And then I would last like a month, 2 months, freak out because of everything going on, like reading, having my thoughts read and stuff, and then leave, and then realize I have no money, try to survive, fail, and then have to go to one of these jobs again and try and calm myself down as much as possible. But what would happen is the thoughts would go through the phone into the computer, and then you would have like fields populated with the person's details. So you'd have their name, their address, their phone number, and I would believe that in the addresses and the names there were secret coded messages for me that I needed to decode in order to figure out what was going on. And that would build up and build up, and at first it was settling, it would settle my emotions. I was like, "Oh, something's telling me something here and it's going to help me," or something. But then it would degenerate through my thoughts. I would get paranoid about what they were taking from my thoughts and my mind, and then I would see more vicious coded messages in the person's details and stuff, and so that would just degrade me as the day went through. And I would try most of the time just to kind of keep it together, and I call it acting, but a lot of people are probably familiar with this if they've suffered from psychosis, schizophrenia. But I would act like everything was okay and put on a more of a performance, and that led to some embarrassing situations because I would spin around and I'd be like, "I'm a good salesman," like, no, it was absolutely terrible. But then the worst one that I've ever had in terms of fear was I was sat in a cinema, and they were giving an introductory talk to this because I went with a friend to explain what the film was about because it was an artsy film. And I remember sitting there and had some negative thoughts about the person giving the talk, and like, "Oh my God, this is ridiculous." Not really a fan of modern art culture, but then in that moment it was like a flash just came over me, and all of a sudden I thought, "Oh my God, everybody has heard my thoughts." And there was a silence as well, and it was so unbelievably intense. My entire nervous system wanted to get up and run. It was so intense. I genuinely believed. And then I was like, "Oh my God, did I say that out loud? Did I not say that out loud?" I genuinely believed they had all heard my thoughts, and that's why they were silent. And then I was like, "Wait, did I say it out loud? Is that why they've all gone silent? Is that why they've all heard it? How did that happen?" And that was a really terrifying one. That really, I don't know whether or not that was full psychosis or more like a really terrifying kind of just weird thought broadcast experience. But that's what in essence what thought broadcasting is. Yeah, it's quite confusing actually to try and think about it. But there's a terrifying. That's probably the most terrifying of of those experiences. Trying to think if there's any others actually. Really, it was always through headsets, my thoughts going through into the computer, or moments like that where I thought that I think I did have another time where I experienced when I thought people had heard my thoughts as if I was spoken them out loud. But yeah, in essence, that's what it is. I just wanted to make a quick video explaining what my experiences were like with that. Have a great day.